Once again, are you ready? Oh, this is getting old. Um, so let me go ahead and rewind this. They used to say that the revolution would not be televised. Today, it's live streamed, clipped, shared, celebrated, and this is evident in New York City's Islamo-communist victories and the ideas that are being espoused that have moved from the fringe, the fringiest of the fringe, to the mainstream. And the headlines that we're seeing today tell an even bigger story. So tonight, we're going to look at New York's political shift, the ideas and the people behind it, and why you should be paying attention. This is the Mission Ready Men Briefing.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men Briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where faith in God sets the standard and masculinity is not toxic. Today is June 25th in the year of our Lord 2026. We have a ton of stuff to get into today, but real quick, do all of the algorithm things like, subscribe, share, help us get the word out, help us get out of this chokehold that the big tech tyrants have us in. And we've noticed that it's gotten even worse, and it's because they're trying to suppress conservative content yet again ahead of the midterm elections. That's really the only thing we can think of, and we're seeing it across the board, and not just on SHR, but I mean, I've been seeing and hearing people talk about this for the past couple of weeks, that their content is just being suppressed. You see people online talking about, hey, hit like if you can see this, because nobody's, we're seeing losses in views and subscriptions and all the rest of it. So if you could help us out and do all of that, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. We've seen people get unsubscribed when they are faithful watchers and listeners. So make sure you check that out as well. And if you could do the same thing on the Mission Ready Men Briefing YouTube channel, the one that's separate from SHR, same show, same content and all that. But if you're not over there, go ahead and hit like and subscribe and share that one as well. All right, let's get after it. Before we get started, I want to just talk about what happened in Venezuela real quick. Our hearts obviously break for those people in Venezuela dealing with that crisis right now. Two huge back-to-back earthquakes, one 7.2 and one 7.5 on the Richter scale. That's insane. And they struck near Caracas and the surrounding areas. As of my last time I looked, there were 188 people dead, injuring 1,500. And I believe the number that I saw was 38,000 unaccounted for. And who knows what the real number is there. We got aftershocks and everything, and And the death toll is, especially given how many people are unaccounted for, is unfortunately likely to rise. So we pray for those people. Our hearts go out to them. Our prayers go up for them. It's a shame. Rescue teams are searching to the extent that they really have any. Residents are sleeping where they can. Hospitals, power, water, all of the fragile infrastructure that they have is now destroyed or just completely overwhelmed. And all of those services, what they have is at the breaking point. And the reason it's at the breaking point is that there were decades of socialist rule. They gutted all of these programs and underinvested in all of these programs. And then, of course, obviously the government corruption, they were funneling money from these programs to line their own pockets. And that left the power grid unreliable. That leaves hospitals without supplies. That leaves water systems failing, buildings unprepared for this type of activity and collapsing. And considering how wealthy the country of Venezuela was at one point and all the resources that they have or had at their disposal, it should have, I'm not saying that this should have been easy for them to handle, but they should have a lot more resources to deal with it than they do. And it's a tragic result of socialist rule and prioritizing government control of a few people or by a few people over actual functioning governance. It's sad. But just let's remember that these people in Venezuela are not the government, are not the regime, and we should pray for them and pray for their families and do what we can to help them as much as we can. All right, so we'll like I said, we'll pray for the people of Venezuela and hope that they come out of that as okay as they can, really. Speaking of socialist governance, last night, or a couple of nights ago now, New York Democrats nominated for Congress some of the most radical left-wing lunatics you could possibly imagine. And some of the things that these people say, have said, and do, it just boggles the mind that there were enough people to vote for, and enough people, I say that, but only 11% of the electorate actually voted in the primary. And that tells you, that should tell you everything that you need to know about how this is shaping up. Tuesday's Democrat primaries in New York District 7, 10, and 13 were wins for these Democrat socialist lunatics who were backed by Zohran Mamdani, who they are now touting as this kingmaker in New York, which is insane. He's been in power for like 45 seconds. But Claire Valdez, Brad Lander, and Daria Liza Avila Chevalier, who we talked about either in the last show or the show before that, all of them won their primaries. And people like Whoopi Goldberg say, well, it's just one person or it's just a few people. We'll see what happens in November. Come on now. These people are going to get elected in November. It's New York. It's New York. Barring divine intervention, which is not outside the realm of possibility, but barring divine intervention, the Democrat, the left-wing candidate, is going to win in New York. And these people, like I said, it's amazing to me that these people have actually won in some of these elections. And just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with these lunatics, this was the scene after they had Hakeem Jeffries on the screen, and they were all screaming, "You are next." Meaning he is going to be ousted next. He is a left-wing lunatic himself, but he's not left-wing enough. He's not lunatic enough for these people. And so you have him on the chopping block, and you have Chevalier, Daria-Lisa Chevalier, who beat the incumbent Espelot. And she won because she had the support of the white voters, while Espelot did much better among the Black and Latino voters in his district, which is Harlem, Washington Heights, part of the Bronx. And that is in line with how Mamdani won. He won with a lot of left-wing progressive voters, white, Gaups, as Beasley likes to say, guilty, overeducated white people. And it's amazing to me because this is the coalition that claims to speak for the marginalized people, the minorities and stuff like that. But they're increasingly getting support and empowered by the constituency that is most insulated from the ridiculous policies that they champion. The people who live with the consequences voted a lot differently than the people who write these stupid campaign slogans. Thomas Sowell, he said that, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the quote in front of me, but he said something along the lines of, "It is stupid. There is no more stupid way to govern than to hand the decisions over to people who suffer no consequences for being wrong." That was obviously a paraphrase, but it's true. The politicians aren't going to suffer any consequences from being wrong, and the people who voted for them, the guilty, overeducated white people who have enough income to be able to protect themselves from this stuff, they're not going to suffer either. Daria-Lisa Chevalier. This woman is a piece of work, let me tell you. She is the founder of the Columbia University Apartheid Divest Coalition. And they were behind all of the uprisings that you saw on college campuses Colombia included. And this is a post, this post that we're about to show you is now deleted. I don't know why, but a lot of the stuff that they put out there has been deleted. So we only have screenshots, unfortunately, but this is one of the pieces of propaganda that they put out. This was on their Instagram, I believe. We are Westerners fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. We stand in full solidarity with every movement for liberation in the global South. Our intifada, interesting word, is an internationalist one. We are fighting for nothing less than the liberation of all people. We reject every genocidal eugenicist regime. So you're against abortion? Nah. That seeks to undermine the personhood of the colonized. We seek community and instruction from militants in the global South. Just all kinds of academic dribble. But she also obviously hates the United States and all of the people who support that hate the United States. There was another post that was put out, and let's just take a look at this real quick, because this was part of the literature, the about literature of CUAD. And it says here, true divestment necessitates nothing short of the total collapse of the university structure and American empire itself. They elected this person to the United States Congress. To divest from this is to undermine and eradicate America as we know it. And then down here, we act in full support of the Palestinian resistance. These people absolutely hate America and everything that it stands for. This is not propaganda. This is not talking points from some right-wing organization. These are their own words, her own words. She founded this group. And they elected her to the United States Congress. Yeah, primary, whatever. It's New York. She's going to be the next representative of that district. And I showed the video last time we talked about her, where she was praising Hamas on October 8th, the day after they attacked Israel. She is fully against the police. She wants to abolish ICE. She thinks that there should be no prisons, even for murderers. She was asked about that repeatedly, and she never answered the question. She dodged it at least 4 times. So not just what we talked about before, where it was about deportations and deporting murderers and stuff like that. No, this is just your average American criminal who happens to be a murderer. She doesn't believe that those people should be incarcerated. She thinks they should just be allowed to walk the streets because somehow it's society's fault that they killed someone or something. And take that to its logical conclusion. I mean, she's talking about serial rapists, serial murderers. She doesn't think there should be prisons for anyone. She doesn't think that a crime has been committed that somebody needs to go to jail for. And you can say, well, that sounds extreme. I don't think that that's what she really means. Well, she had ample opportunity to clarify and she never did. So what else are we to conclude? Vicky Palladino, she's a firebrand local New York State rep who says that this should be grounds for her not to be seated. And I agree. And I'm gonna move on from her, but I just want to show you this as well, because this I forgot to get napkins, so I just wiped my hand on the American flag behind me. Wow. And they voted her into Congress. And the other one that they voted in, Claire Valdez, she's no better. She was on a podcast with no, I can't even remember her name. She's another left-wing lunatic. But just listen to some of this. Oh, Francesca Fiorentini. She routinely gets destroyed in debates with people who actually know what they're talking about.
I see that you are a dual national of the Native American Isleta del Sur Pueblo in Texas. You're from Texas. Tell me about how does being Native and part of this, being a dual national, how does it inform your politics?
Yeah, it's I think it does a couple things. I think like it ties me very personally to the fights for self-determination and sovereignty, from Puerto Rico to Palestine. I think it's so essential that we're standing in solidarity in those struggles. And I think it makes me think about immigration in a different way. We hear all these, white conservative men talk about who does and does not belong here. And look, this nation was founded on genocide and the mass displacement of people. This is
I can't take it anymore. She goes on in that podcast to talk about how she wants to nationalize. Part of her platform, she wants to get rid of pre-check for some reason, and she wants to nationalize the airline industry. These people are insane, absolutely insane. And before we move on, because we do have a few other things to get to this evening, the other person that won in New York, Brad Lander, he's Jewish. He's Jewish, and he was at a mosque, and he thought that it would be a good idea. Well, you know what? Let's just take a look.
I believe, as a proud Jewish New Yorker, that Israel's genocide in Gaza is a desecration, is a violation of the understanding.
What genocide? Whenever somebody says that online, I always say, what genocide? Define genocide. Because since this conflict between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza kicked off all those years ago, the population of Gaza has exploded to over, I believe, 2 million people at this point now. If that's a genocide, they're doing it completely wrong. So I would love for one of these people to finally come up with a definition of genocide that actually matches what's happening over there. But anyway, let's continue.
That everyone is created in God's image, every one of those Palestinian kids in Gaza, just as divine as my beloved children. And so, yes, in Congress, I will not vote for any more U.S. military aid to Israel, not the bombs that are destroying the hospitals and schools in Gaza, not the occupation in Lebanon, which is
What occupation?
now, I believe, unfortunately, on its way potentially to being a genocide as well. Kind of partnership I developed with Soran, I hope to come to have with Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and others in Congress to show we can build a city and a country and a world that everyone can afford, and where everyone is welcome and where everyone's humanity is respected. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kulhu Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad.
This dude is Jewish, and he's in a mosque reciting a prayer or a verse in Arabic from the Quran. I mean, is there a more obvious? Is there a more obvious example of suicidal empathy than that? Most of the people in that mosque would kill him, would take his head off if given the opportunity. I would never, as an infidel, as a proud infidel, set foot in a mosque, ever. And I am at a complete loss. I'm mystified that this guy, as a Jewish person, set foot in a mosque. Blows my mind. The phrase "the mask is off" is kind of overused, and so is, to a certain extent, they're not hiding anymore. But it is completely appropriate in this case. They have shed any pretense, especially in New York. And the thing is, it's not like this is confined to New York. There are races all over the country. Michigan, I believe Pennsylvania, New Jersey. There are races all over the country where DSA candidates, Democrat Socialist of America candidates, are running and winning. And Amber Kawas, we talked about her before. I just remembered this. I don't have a video or anything of it, but we've talked about this before. When we played the video before, Amber Kawas, she was a councilwoman, and she ran, I believe, as a for a state representative seat in New York. She blamed the United States for 9/11, and she won. America First 271K says, a society collapses when people forget who they are, when history becomes shame, that when tradition becomes weakness, then comfort is more important than meaning. You're 100% correct. And the thing is, with the election of Mamdani as mayor of New York, it is obvious. It is completely obvious that New York forgot. They forgot. They forgot what happened 25 years ago. And they elected an Islamist mayor who pals around with the very people who helped plan the attack that brought down the towers. It's insane. And part of me at times has felt some sympathy towards the people of New York for the people who voted against this but are being overwhelmed by the left wing. But the problem is only 11% of the people in New York voted. 89% of the electorate left this up to those 11%. So any sympathy I may have had, gone. Because you sat home and didn't do anything about it. So you get what you get. And I don't feel sorry for you anymore. Now, there are people who did vote and for whatever reason may be stuck in New York, and I can muster some sympathy for those people. But for the 89% who didn't even bother to vote, too bad, so sad. You get what you get. All right, let's get a word in from our sponsor before we move on. And our sponsor for today's show is Carry Girl Gear. Summer is here, and carrygirl.com has the perfect gear for it. Lightweight shirts, great designs, drinkware, hats, other accessories that she will absolutely love and rock all summer long. Perfect for beach trips, road trips, backyard barbecues, all of it. And if you want to go the easy route and either don't feel like trying to pick something out or know that you will pick the wrong thing, go ahead and get yourself a gift card. That will be an easy win, and everybody wins in that situation. So visit carrygirl.com today and check out everything that we have over there and get summer ready. Okay. We talked about what's going on in the United States, and we have been talking a lot about what's going on overseas. And Europe apparently would rather jail women for stating the obvious about the danger posed to them by migrants over there and the sexual assault that they suffer. And they punish these women hiding behind the idea of hate speech. And J.D. Vance caught a lot of flack either early this year or last year when he talked to, he was over in Europe and he basically read them the riot act about free speech. And now we're seeing that it's playing out. There is a French woman by the name of Thais Descoufon. And her story is absolutely crazy to me. She was back in 2022, she was on her way home, and a immigrant from Tunisia followed her into her apartment, trapped her there for 20 to 30 minutes, sexually assaulted her, and after 20 to 30 minutes, she was able to escape and reported the crime. And she is now being punished for speaking out about it. And the attacker, no one knows. No one knows. So in 2023, and this woman, she is active in French politics. And in 2023, she was on a TV show where she was discussing a different assault. And she said, and it's in French, so I'm not gonna play it for you. But she said that the main danger for women in France are Black, African, and Arab immigrant men. Everybody lost their minds. And just about a week ago, she was convicted of public insult based on origin or ethnicity. And they asked for 4 months in prison. And she was only fined 1,000 euros. But she obviously she's going to appeal that, but how backwards is that? They told her when it happened that they probably wouldn't be able to find this guy. I would suspect that they probably didn't even try. But let's take a look at this. This video where she talks about is about 5 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but check this out.
My European and American friends. I just got off the phone with my lawyer and the verdict is in. The prison sentence has been ruled out. However, I am still convicted to a fine, but I'm gonna tell you everything. For those who may not know, I was facing 4 months of unsuspended prison for stating that the main threat to women in France comes from Black and Arab immigrant men. And I was sued for these words, despite the fact that I was myself the victim of a sexual assault committed by a Tunisian migrant in 2022. Before your incredible mobilization, the judicial system had set out to crush me. I had already been sentenced to 6 months suspended prison and a 3,000 fine for denouncing human trafficking across the Mediterranean Sea. And this time, I think the goal was to finish the job by sending me to prison. But something changed. Following the advice of those close to me, I decided to stop staying silent. I shared my story with you in the hope that it would resonate, and honestly, I still don't know how to thank you. What happened feels almost unreal. Your support exceeded anything I could have imagined.
And she goes on to talk about all the support she got and everything like that. It really blows my mind. Again, it blows my mind that the victim of a sexual assault is the one that gets punished. Not for a false report, but for actually telling the truth. Because feelings, I guess. And in case you thought that this was just some random runoff, and America First has some numbers that I'll show you in a second. Thank you for being in the chat, by the way. Thank all of you for being in the chat. I want to thank the moderators for keeping everything in order in the chat. Thank you all very much for being here. I really appreciate it. And again, like I said at the beginning, do me a favor and like and subscribe and share, and make sure that you enable notifications so that you know when these things come out, and check to make sure that you're still subscribed. But anyway, getting back to the issue at hand, across the channel in the UK, there's a woman by the name of Elizabeth Kinney, and she was the victim of not a sexual assault, but a full out assault. And she's a single mother. a home care worker, a nurse from Myerside. She was beaten by a male acquaintance of hers, and she ended up in the hospital with a skull fracture and brain inflammation. And in private text to a former friend of hers who she believed was responsible for basically sicking this guy on her, she texted her photos of her injuries and called the guy who did it a faggot. The guy who actually did it, who they know, they can find, they know who it is. No charges. They charged her with a homophobic hate crime. Not even implying that the guy was homosexual or anything like that. Just used it as a derogatory term of somebody who brutally beat her. And she ended up facing up to 10 years in jail. Let's I'm not going to play this whole thing because it's she's on with Piers Morgan and it's 10 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing, obviously, but I just want to give you an idea of what happened here.
A friend, okay. Like a group of friends, the female acquaintance that basically she was getting jealous over me because she started seeing my ex-partner. So she was trying to cause trouble for me, which ended up resulting in me getting attacked. After that, obviously, I went to the hospital and I sent her messages and pictures of my injuries, just to prove like what she'd caused. And obviously, I was very upset at the time. I'd had a like inflammation on my brain. I had a skull fracture, which made me not really feel like myself at the time. I was very upset and I was very angry with what had happened to me, which made me like say messages that I really wouldn't have said.
So you sent her a load of messages. I mean, would you categorize them as abusive, highly abusive?
It was more just to pointing to the fact that what had happened to me. I only just sent her pictures of my injuries, and obviously said like, why would you cause this much trouble for me and stuff, and make up lies, and like which now resulted in me being attacked. And
she then reported you.
Yeah.
For what she said were harassing messages.
Yeah, it was a 5-minute period of time.
So she got reported to the police. 11 cops showed up at her door. Only one female. She was in her bath when the cops showed up and took her into custody. She had to beg them to send the male cops outside so the female could sit with her while she got dressed. And this was a couple of weeks after the initial incident, obviously because she was home and out of the hospital. But the guy who did it, no charges. And he's still walking free. Sweden, Germany, France we talked about. Similar stories like this are happening all across Europe. And even though this woman, Elizabeth Kinney, was attacked by somebody that she knew, he was an immigrant. All of these foreign-born men from Middle East, North Africa, and African backgrounds are massively, massively overrepresented when it comes to rape and sexual assault of victims. And we've talked extensively about the grooming, rape gangs and all of that nonsense. Nonsense in the fact that it shouldn't be happening, not that it's not happening, which is some people are calling BS on the report and all that other stuff. I don't understand why they continue to protect these people at the expense of their own citizens. Because hate speech laws. And they just weaponize them to silence anyone from speaking out, from noticing and speaking out about this obvious pattern of two-tier justice, because they have to protect the narrative. Committing an assault, sexual assault or otherwise, in Europe, if they bother to try and find you, might get you a fine or something like that, or a really short sentence if they decide to go ahead and prosecute. And apparently, I haven't had a chance to dig into it, but apparently some of the girls and women who were assaulted and talked about in that report that came out from the UK, the rape gang report, some of those women have gotten letters saying that their abusers are about to get out of jail. Utterly insane. Scripture doesn't command us to be polite or silent in the face of this type of abuse of vulnerable people or people who are sacrificed at the altar of political correctness. Proverbs 31 says, "Open your mouth for the mute and defend the oppressed." The church has been silent for far too long. Far too long. And there was a time when the church would have been leading the charge against all of this. And somehow it just hasn't, that's fallen by the wayside. Christianity built what we now see as Western civilization on truth, on justice, on protecting the weak and the vulnerable. Not by surrendering the public square to lies and chaos. God is not the author of confusion, but of order and peace. And to retreat and be silent, that's not piety or righteousness. That's complicity and surrender. The West as a whole, Great Britain and the United States in particular, needs to remember we were built on Christian values, and a Christian society doesn't fine or punish women for warning other women about the danger or venting on the heels of an attack. And even she was in the hospital right after the attack. Even if this exchange had taken place 2 weeks later, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. She should be allowed to call the guy who attacked her that way whatever she wanted, and people shouldn't even blink an eye. But yet here she is facing jail time for calling her attacker a faggot. I mean, utterly insane. All right, let's move on because we got a lot to get to. And I was going to talk about Keir Starmer and his resignation. And I'm not gonna belabor the point, but I do want to play this because this is this is actually quite hilarious. He had his resignation speech where he cried at the end. I'm not gonna play all that, but I do want to play this because apparently he is not very popular. So take a look at this.
Has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision.
Wow. The entire bar erupted in cheers when he said he was going to resign. That's hilarious to me. I'm not going to get into all the politics of that. It's irrelevant at this point. But I did want to share that because I thought that was pretty funny. But I did want to talk about this because another story that popped up around this time is kind of a microcosm of what's happening over there and over here to a certain extent. Because Keir Starmer's culture didn't where's Dexter when you need him? That's pretty funny. And if you don't know who Dexter is, then I can't really help you. But if you do know who Dexter is, then you get that reference and you're probably finding it as amusing as I do. But Keir Starmer's influence over the country, and going back to before he was prime minister, when he was head of the CPS, that his type of philosophy, his type of his philosophy is infecting pretty much everything over there. Could not agree more. No foreign-born individual should be allowed to hold political office unless they, well, no, I do disagree. I don't think foreign-born individuals should be allowed to hold political office. End. Period. U.S. passport holder or not. But anyway, there was a British police officer by the name of Luke Salmons. And he was in a training, and he was in this training for mandatory training for race, religion, and culture. And apparently during this training, it became basically just an indoctrination into Islam, saying that Islam is a religion of peace. And that was like kind of a mantra that was being propagated in this training. Let's take a look at this real quick.
I just felt that I was being pushed out. I felt like the police didn't care about me. I'd given, nearly 8.5 years of my life to serving the community, to working hard for the police, and then they didn't care about me anymore. The only reason I was asking these questions was because we were introduced as a safe space to ask questions, and if we can't speak about these things on a training course openly, where can we talk about them? Well, the claims against me were that I was racist, I was homophobic, that I'd broken policy on race, religion and culture, but I hadn't done any of these things. You have on a number of occasions engaged in discussions which have at times made people feel uncomfortable and unsettled. I mean, the only person that made a complaint from that training course, as far as I know, was the Muslim sergeant. To me, it felt like slander. You're tearing down my good name, and I felt like I was just being accused of all these things, and everything was spiraling out of my control. It was just gutting. I just didn't understand at all what was going on. So when I attended the police station, I was told to go into a side meeting room, and without even telling me why I was in the room or what was going on, the inspector started pointing a finger at me and saying, "I don't like your beliefs. I don't like your beliefs." And I'm like, what have I done? I asked some questions on the training course which were appropriate questions about the subject matter.
It was a mandatory training. He was asking questions, and according to the article, the training was heavily focused on Islam, no attention to Christianity. And during one of the training sessions, he asked the sergeant for his thoughts on the situation in Gaza and the Middle East. And he asked a question about how the sergeant as a Muslim understood the term jihad. And apparently that conversation went well, and they met for coffee and talked about it. And Salmons brought up a book called Answering Jihad, A Better Way Forward by a former Muslim and a New York Times bestselling author by the name of Nabil Qureshi. And as a result of that book, which was seen in his locker, was what prompted them to make this complaint, another complaint, which led to his suspension and eventual dismissal. Now, the good thing is he sued, and he was, I don't want to say exonerated, but he won a settlement from the Yorkshire Police Department. The fact that that happened, the fact that that even took place, well, it shouldn't be surprising coming from the government that we see over there now with Keir Starmer in charge. It seems pretty par for the course. There was a culture of fear in this police department, according to Salmons, that they just wanted the police to sit on their hands and not do anything. Meanwhile, grooming rape gangs were running rampant all over the UK because no one wanted to ruffle any feathers. No one wanted to be called no one wanted to be called a racist or something. Even though, I made this point several times, Islam is not a race, but details. This is one of those things where you can't fully fathom the depravity of the people in charge when they allow rape gangs to run the streets, but jailing women, fining women for grossly offensive texts and Facebook posts. Don't forget that 12,000 people a day are getting arrested for saying something mean online. not threats, not planning terrorist attacks, but calling people names, saying that North African, Middle Eastern immigrants into the country are the big problem. That these Islamic enclaves where they enforce Sharia law with no-go zones, those are the problem. That's the people who call that out are the ones who get fined and arrested, but not the people who are operating those no-go zones and assaulting and raping women and young girls. It makes total sense to them, I guess. And to anyone who that does make total sense to, I cannot, again, as I said, imagine the depravity that goes into a thought process like that. They arrest people for free speech or for violating hate speech laws faster than they arrest people who actually commit crimes that people are talking about and speaking against in these alleged hate crimes. Starmer's departure as the prime minister is an opening. We're just going to have to see if the next guy, whether that be Andy Burnham or whoever ends up winning that election. But hopefully whoever it is remembers the foundations on which the UK was built. It's sad to watch, and the thing is, it's sad to watch, but we're seeing it start to happen here. We're seeing it start to happen here. When the Muslim call to prayer, right now it's only happening in New York on Fridays, I believe. With the power base that Mamdani is amassing right now, it is not hard to imagine the Muslim call to prayer getting broadcast every day, 5 times a day. And that would be a disaster, because that next thing you know, there'll be no-go zones in the Bronx or Brooklyn. Next thing you know, every bodega in New York is only going to serve halal food. Next thing you know, you won't be able to buy beer in one of those bodegas because, of course, that's not allowed in Islam. But yeah, keep thinking it's no big deal. Keep thinking it's only happening over there. Keep staying home on election day. And then you'll wake up one day and wonder why your kids have to go to school in a burqa. And I'll be sitting here saying, I tried to tell you. All right, let's move on, because I got a couple other things I want to get to. No, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, because I want to make sure I get this one in. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. a Supreme Court, in one of the rare cases, one of the rare Second Amendment cases that they take up, actually handed gun owners a win, a unanimous one, which is beyond shocking, honestly. And Clarence Thomas, I love Clarence Thomas. He just lit a fuse under decades of federal gun control. And the decision is the Hamani decision. And as a Second Amendment advocate, I have grappled with the question of whether or not people who smoke marijuana or engage in other or take other illegal substances should be barred from owning firearms. The federal government has made a living of prosecuting people who use marijuana for gun possession without proving A, that they were under the influence when they were arrested and in possession of said firearm, or B, that they were violent or posed some kind of danger to themselves or anyone else as a result of using marijuana and being in possession of this firearm. They never had to prove any of that. They just had to prove that this person used marijuana and had possession of a firearm. That's it. And I have gone back and forth over the years. Yeah, they should be banned. No, they shouldn't be banned. But as the older I get and the more I think about the Constitution, unless the person is, this is my personal opinion, unless the person is in danger or is endangering somebody or has committed some violent crime while on marijuana and in possession of a gun, then yeah, they should be banned. But the federal government has been able to strip people of their Second Amendment rights and their ability to own a gun while they've been in their home, not endangering anyone, smoking weed in their home, having a gun in their home, and being arrested. And as far as I'm concerned, that to me is a bridge too far. And the case I'm talking about is U.S. versus Hamani. He was a marijuana user, and they ruled in his favor that the federal government cannot bar him from owning firearms. Clarence Thomas, in his concurrence, took it a step further because the mechanism that they've been using is the Commerce Clause. And the Commerce Clause is U.S. Code 18922 G3, and it's the law that bans certain categories of people from possessing firearms: felons, fugitives, people convicted of domestic violence offenses, and unlawful use of controlled substances. And in 922 G3, an unlawful user of a controlled substance cannot possess a firearm or ammunition in or affecting commerce. Now, if you're sitting in your home, how are you engaging in or affecting commerce? Of course you're not. But that phrase in that law is how the federal government has been able to claim the authority to prosecute people for simple possession of a firearm while in their own homes. And there's certain court precedent has been used where the government doesn't have to prove that the gun that the person was in possession of, that they bought it across state lines or anything like that. Doesn't have to prove anything except that they were in possession of the firearm. And Clarence Thomas's concurrence is pretty detailed, as his decisions and his writings in these decisions usually is. But I just want to talk about this one particular passage that he wrote. And he says, Section 922G appears to exceed Congress's powers under the Commerce Clause. Congress has the power to regulate commerce among the several states. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. As a matter of both original meaning and this court's precedents, Congress lacks the power to regulate the possession of firearms solely on the ground that they cross state lines at some point in the past. And he goes on and he really lays out the case. And I'm not going to read all of that, but that boils it down to its barest essence right there. And so he goes on to talk about that this needs to be looked at in another appropriate case. And so I'm hoping that Gun Owners of America, the Firearm Policy Council, somebody can have standing to bring a challenge to this in the court. And given that this was a 9-0 decision, I mean, even Ketanji Brown Jackson concurred with this opinion. That's amazing to me. That tells me that the case is pretty cut and dry, that even the leftists, Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan, couldn't disagree with it. It was unanimous that they believed that this violated Hamani's Second Amendment rights. And this is going to open the door for a number of challenges, I believe. And I'm hoping that it happens sooner rather than later. But you have to remember the Supreme Court is very slow to take up Second Amendment cases. And there have been some Second Amendment cases that even Clarence Thomas voted to not not take up, which was disappointing. I can't remember which cases they were at this point. It was a while ago, but I remember the disappointment I felt. But Clarence Thomas, in this concurrence, he reminds us that the Constitution is a document that limits government, not one that grants all these powers to the government. It limits the government. So we need to keep tabs on this and follow future cases involving 922G, and hopefully we can get, depending on who retires in the next couple of years, if anyone does, get some more originalist judges in there who actually understand the Constitution. All right. I wasn't going to get into this, but we do have some time, and I don't follow the WNBA. I don't follow women's basketball. I don't even really follow very many sports anymore, to be honest with you. Because they've all gone woke. They've all baseball hasn't, and but just generally don't watch a lot of baseball, even though I love baseball. But for whatever reason, the only sport I really watch these days is NASCAR and college football. But something happened in a game involving the Indiana Fever, which is Caitlin Clark's team. And I'm not sure what the other team is, and it doesn't even really matter. But Caitlin Clark was involved in a game, obviously, and she was hard fouled, as she often is. And it blows my mind because she is what many people, I mean, I don't watch enough women's basketball to be able to say this from my own observations, but a lot of people have said that she is a generational talent and that these leagues tend to protect generational talents like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Dr. J. That was going way back. But they seem to be going out of their way to make sure she gets hurt. And there was a really hard foul on her. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that real quick.
I mean, Caitlin to the ground, and ooh, that's a...
Did you catch that? Watch right here.
Ground, and ooh, that's a hand to the neck, and then Alyssa Thomas steps over her. See, that's the kind of stuff that can incite some future trouble.
Caitlin Clark has been hammered to the ground numerous times. And just then, the other player, whatever her name was, Alyssa something or other, put her fist on her neck and got up, like used it to push herself up. And she ended up having to leave the game. And the problem with this is that it has been obvious from the beginning that this is racially motivated. And from what I've seen, like I haven't watched the game, but from the clips that I've seen, Caitlin Clark is just infinitely better. Okay, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but she is worlds better than most of the women that she's playing against. Angel Reese, who was supposed to be her big rival coming out of college, looks like a baby giraffe out on the court half the time. She's terrible. And it's because she's white, she's straight, and she's better. And we're living in this racial identity world right now where Black people just seem to think that the world owes them something simply because they're Black. And if somebody is not Black, taking something from them that they believe is owed them, well, then the result is what we see with Caitlin Clark and the lesbians in the WNBA. I've been hearing about this now for so long. I don't know how long Caitlin Clark's been in the league, 2 or 3 years now. And I've been hearing about it since she came into the league. I would love to see her just walk away. Walk away. Go over to Europe where you will be treated like royalty and make your money over there. And she doesn't need basketball to make money. She's making so much money from her endorsement deals. The money that they earn in the WNBA salary-wise is a pittance compared to what she's earning. Although she doesn't need the WNBA. The WNBA needs her, and they're treating her like absolute garbage. It is a terrible business model. This is the coach of the Fever.
I mean, the fist in the throat is crazy. It's crazy. It's dangerous. The landing spot, when you went to review it, and she still comes down on top of another foot, like, I don't know. Because to me, that's like a do-over on a test. How do you screw it up again? You're coming in here aware of what happened 2 nights ago? And that still happens? Absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And the reckless closeout that they actually reviewed, and the foot still comes down on top of the defender's foot that wasn't upgraded? Absolutely disrespectful. We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
As somebody who used to watch a lot of basketball, used to play a lot of basketball, it is absolutely unacceptable. And I thought she was going to talk about the fact that the one who put her fist in her throat didn't get called for a foul or anything like that. And it turns out that the next day they assessed a flagrant 2 foul and suspended her for a whole game, for what could have amounted to crushing her throat. Because she happens to be white and better than everyone else. And to add insult to injury, there is the WNBA is 30 years old. And the WNBA is 30 years old, and they had a poster made up of all the superstars, past and present. And Caitlin Clark was left off. Yeah, it's tough to see. You can't see it, so never mind. But Caitlin Clark was left off. But Angel Reese and all these other people who have half the talent she does, if that, were on. I mean, that right there should be enough for Caitlin Clark to say, you know what, this isn't worth it. I'm peacing out. And I hope she does. She probably won't, because she's that competitive that she will probably stick it out. But I hope that competitive streak doesn't get her hurt to the point where she can't play anymore. These people, this racial nonsense has got to stop. I've said before, black fatigue is real, and these black lesbian chicks in the WNBA, they're going to get their cash cow hurt. And then what? The NBA should just stop subsidizing this vanity project anyway. Let's be honest. It doesn't need to exist. All these women should go over to Europe and play basketball. All right, y'all. That's going to do it for this show. I am Big E, and you have been watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch all of our great shows, all the guys in the lineup. We have Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense. He is on every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Both of those guys have been off for a little bit, but they will be back. And BZ, the saloon is open. The Berserk Bobcat Saloon is open tonight. He will be on in a little more than a half an hour from now, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. And Lyle Armstrong, who also has been a little under the weather lately, every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'm not sure if he's going to be back tomorrow, but let's all pray that he is feeling better, and he will be back behind the mic tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific. And that is going to do it for this briefing. We are not here to just speak into the ether. We're here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. If anything that we said here tonight resonated with you, please don't just watch, but share it. Share the channel, share this episode, bring another guy into the fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all of the great designs that we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And while you're there, click on the SHR Media Shop and check out all the designs for the guy shows that we have here, and the mug and the hoodie and the logo tee as well. But that's going to do it for us. So as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.